Hey, if you're watching this video, you're gonna want to stick around until the very end to catch the phenomenal outcome of this story.
Corporal William Kyle Carpenter should not be alive today, but the fact that he is gives us reason to trust that there is indeed a bigger plan.
The men and women of the United States military make incredible sacrifices every day to protect the country's freedom. Often when we think of these sacrifices, we quickly think of those who have lost their lives in service. But at any given time, thousands of soldiers are stationed abroad, miles from their families with limited chances to even phone home. The demanding nature of military service, even during times of relative peace, means that many soldiers wind up missing key milestones like weddings, funerals, and even the birth of their children. Additionally, those left behind often have no guarantee that their loved ones will return home safely, if at all. These are just some of the heroic sacrifices that are made every day by those serving our country. The war in Afghanistan stands as the longest war in United States history, with nearly 2 decades of fighting overseas, and while it hasn't taken a decisively more peaceful tone since 2015, there are still attacks almost monthly, perpetrated by Taliban fighters, with many top officials speculating that the United States is no longer in an advantageous position in the war and that they may even be losing ground. All of this means that violence is a very real part of life for soldiers stationed overseas and the families waiting for them back home. In 2010, Lance Corporal William Kyle Carpenter learned the reality of these risks firsthand.
Lance Corporal Carpenter was a member of a platoon-sized coalition force comprised of 2 reinforced Marine rifle squads partnered with an Afghan National Army squad.
Fresh out of high school, William Kyle Carpenter, or as he is more commonly known, Kyle, enlisted in the United States Marines, and by the age of 21, he had achieved rank of Lance Corporal. By that time, it was 2010, and the war had been going on for an astounding 9 years, but still it would prove one of the deadliest, as forces suffered more insurgent attacks than in any other year. In fact, there were more than 1,500 attacks that left 440 US soldiers and countless coalition forces dead. This onslaught of attacks meant that the United States was forced to deploy 30,000 additional troops that year. Among them was Kyle Carpenter and Lance Corporal Nick Afrasio.
In high school, I was a state champion. My competition doubted me because of my size. My family and friends were scared about me joining the Marines.
Almost immediately after arriving, their company was assigned to a tiny village in Marja, a well-known agricultural area in southern Afghanistan. Many of the area's residents are Pashtun, one of the world's largest remaining tribal groups, and some of the most affected by the lengthy war. When Kyle and his fellow soldiers reached Marja, the area was under heavy fire, and the Marines found themselves immediately embroiled in combat. Lance Corporals Carpenter and Afrasio took position on a rooftop where they were expected to have an advantageous position on the enemy. After a few minutes of firefighting, Kyle spotted a grenade that had been thrown onto the roof. This technique is rare, as throwing a grenade up is generally considered to be dangerous. Not only is there a chance of it falling back down, but it may also make it easier for the intended victim to throw it back. For this reason, grenade-wielding teams usually enter from the top of a building. Unlike grenades that are often portrayed in movies and on TV, grenades used in combat situations have very short fuses, often not exceeding 2 seconds. This short fuse ensures that the intended target has as little time as possible to escape or throw it back. The 2 Marines only had part of a second to react. What happened next is something that neither one of them will ever forget. In just a moment, we'll tell you what happened. However, first, make sure you leave a like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon right now if you don't mind. After you click that handy dandy bell, comment Notification Squad below, and I'll reply to all of you saying thanks. 'Cause I love ya.
At 21, my body was torn apart by an enemy hand grenade. I had to be resuscitated in the medevac helicopter. Upon arriving at Camp Bastion, I was labeled PEA. Patient expired on arrival.
Eye to eye with a live explosive device, the 2 Lance Corporals had only an instant to decide what to do next. Without hesitation, Kyle Carpenter threw himself in front of the explosion, doing everything in his power to shield fellow Marine Nick Afrasio from the blast. Kyle succeeded in blocking Nick from the blast, but in the process he endured devastating injuries. Kyle's body was riddled with shrapnel, and most of the bones in his face and skull were shattered. To make things even worse, part of his jaw was missing. His right arm was splintered. He was hemorrhaging profusely, and his lungs had shut down. The damage was so severe that doctors receiving him at Camp Bastion listed him as PEA. This also stands for Patient Expired on Arrival, a designation that declares a patient has a 0% chance of survival. Despite the doctor's initial conclusion, Kyle somehow survived the ordeal, and following more than 40 surgeries over the course of 2 years, he was ready to begin rebuilding his life. Lance Corporal Kyle Carpenter was awarded the Medal of Honor, a Purple Heart, a Navy Achievement Medal, and the Combat Action Ribbon for his heroic deed, and today strives to inspire others with his story.
The enemy killed me. I came back. I ran a marathon, completed a mud run, and jumped from a plane. I won't ever quit. I am just getting started.
That's our video for today, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like so, click on the next 2 videos, because they're just as interesting as this one. Have a good day.